Hi, listener. This is From Ideology to Unity, a spiritual journey where we let go of ego and ideological doctrine in favor of meaning, purpose, and unity as a whole. Today, I'm interviewing Janie Jurkovich. Janie is an author, speaker, world traveler, and medium. It is Janie's mission to help move humanity more towards a world of love and compassion. In line with this, she set up the new movement.com. Janie is also committed to encouraging women to live their best lives. Hi, Janie.
Hi, thank you for having me as a guest.
It's a pleasure. So how are you doing today?
Everything is wonderful. It's all a matter of my perspective, my mindset. So I'm choosing to keep it happy and keep it up there, keep it positive.
How long have you been doing that then?
How long have I been what?
Keeping it positive.
Well, I've been trying my best for the last 7 years after my ex-husband left. And I realized my life was not what I wanted it to be. So I started searching for answers and I found them. And I figured out how to go from being basically a spiritually starved workaholic, working 3 jobs, trying to keep from going under, even though my debt was mounting, and figured out how to live a more peaceful and joyous life. And that journey led me to do a lot of studying and reading, and also a lot of personal reflection. And I figured out just what a person needs to do to live their best life. And that's what I wrote about in my first book, Live the Life You Have Imagined. And I put those simple steps, those simple ways into use. And that's how I basically fixed my life or transformed my life. And when I was doing that, I also learned how to tap into spirituality and grow my intuition to the place where I can now tap into what I call all that is. Some people might call it God or the universe or universal intelligence, but I managed to do that, and I keep working on that skill. And along the way, I was able to receive a download of an entire book about why we are here and the lessons to learn. And that's what I write about in the new I Am document, which will be out soon. And I realized that I was going to have to create a movement to get these lessons out. And so that's why I set up the website, the new movement.com. And people can go there and watch a video and learn a little bit more about it, and they can sign up to find out when the new I Am document is going to be available. And then also they'll find out when my other book is going to be available, which is the book that explains how I went from being this overworked person to being able to be a spirit medium. Because it's pretty hard for people to believe. Like, I wouldn't believe it if it didn't happen to me. So I totally get it.
From the outside, someone not interested, maybe from the perspective of someone who's not involved in spirituality, it might seem odd that someone went from one extreme to the other. But from my experience and from what I've heard, that is often how it goes, because we have to learn what we don't want first. And it's like, well, actually, could you tell in more detail, like, what it was about how you were living that was so unsatisfying, and why it's that led to you to awaken, essentially?
Well, what happened is the crisis, when my ex-husband left. I mean, we've been married 35 years, and I was surprised that he left, and I wasn't prepared, and we were in debt, and he wasn't working, and I was totally overwhelmed taking care of everything at the house and doing the jobs. And he left, and it was, well, the first thing that happened was I got some sleep, because I didn't even realize I was sleep deprived for probably at least 20 years. And it's totally amazing, once you get enough sleep, you actually have some clarity. And I just said, I'm not living the rest of my life like this. Like, first of all, I won't last, because I'm going to burn out. I'm going to just go poof up in a ball of smoke, because it's, I'm going to have a heart attack and die or something. So I just got to figure this out. And I was so determined. Napoleon Hill calls it a burning desire, and I definitely had a burning desire. It was like, I don't care what it takes, I'm going to do it to fix my life. And so that's how I was able to do it. And then I didn't really, I mean, I started reading a book on intuition, and I thought that was always interesting. I always thought, oh, that would be cool to do that. And I'd watched people like John Edwards and different people, you know, mediums, and I thought, well, that's really cool. And but I didn't, you know, I didn't really do anything about it because I was too busy working. I was on that, we call it the hamster wheel, you know, just working and working and working. And like, there's no fun, you don't get to do anything. So by focusing and spending the time and learning to meditate, which I didn't even really know what it was or how to do it, I just learned to finally sit and be quiet. And that's what learning about intuition taught me, you know, that you had to just sit and be, and like stop all that chatter in your head that says, okay, now you got to do this, and then you got to do this. And you just say, okay, just set aside and just let me look at the birds and the trees and the sky and relax. And, you know, that was a process. And eventually I was able to, I would hear, I would be quiet enough so I could hear, and I could hear voices telling me, you know, stuff. I would ask I asked so many questions, like, why does this happen? Why does that happen? What does this mean? And I didn't know any spiritual people except for one lady, and she really helped me a lot. She explained that those were spirit guides. And later I found out that everybody has spirit guides. And boy, if you're not taking advantage of that, you're really missing out, because that's a way to fast forward your life really quick.
Well, let's talk about that then. So,
okay.
From what I hear, the spirit guides, you can hear them more in different ways. And what's the best way to connect to them and
the first thing you have to know is you have to ask. If you don't ask, you won't. They are not allowed to help you. And there are beings that are assigned to you for your lifetime, and their entire purpose is to help you evolve. But they cannot help you if you don't ask. And so in order to ask, you really got to be in a place where you can listen and receive, because you're not going to hear their guidance. If you're that person on the hamster wheel going work, 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 well, you're not going to have time for that. So you have to learn how to relax, and meditating does that. Some people are runners, and so they kind of tune out when they run, or maybe they do yoga, you know, it's all different ways. But basically you have to learn to get in a place of calm. Because for most, I'd say lots of people, they don't even know what that's like. I mean, I didn't even know you could be calm like that. And you have to learn how to be calm and be quiet, and then you need to ask. And that's how you learn to connect to them. And it is, I remember asking lots of questions, like, how come sometimes it sounds like it's one person or being, and sometimes it sounds like somebody else, like their voices and their mannerisms, their tone and stuff is different. And they said, well, it depends what you ask, the most appropriate person will answer. And sometimes when you ask questions, it won't even be one of your spirit guides, it'll be someone else, you know, or some other being. But they send you the most appropriate thing. And I do remember one time saying, oh, this is cool. This is like a giant Google.
Does it sound like an actual noise in like a, or is it like a thought?
Yes, and it's like a voice, but you can kind of feel it. And sometimes words are not exact because we don't have all the right words in English language. One thing I learned that is our natural state as spiritual beings is not to have language. That's something that humans had to create to communicate with each other. But in our natural state, it's not necessary because you can feel each other. I think it must have to do with like telepathy or something. You can hear them, and different people sound differently. And I've actually spoken to other, you know, like famous people that have passed away and asked them different things. And I remember the first time I talked to like Abraham Lincoln, his voice was really halting, like he'd start and then he'd stop, and then he just sounded really different than anyone else. And that was one of the ones that was like really different. But it's such an advantage in your life to learn how to you understand so many things. Like I was able to connect to a grandfather that had passed away when it's my father's father, and he had passed away when my father was 12. So of course I never met him. And just being able to talk to him about his upbringing and the things that happened in his family life, like when my dad was a child, it gave me so much understanding. And it's really been helpful to, I think a lot of people call it clearing out your stuff from your ancestors. And it explained it all, and I could see why things happened in his life, and then why things happened when my parents were married, and why things happened to me when I was growing up. And it just gives you a great understanding. But that's available to everyone, and it's free. And even if all you do is talk to your spirit guides, you'll gain a lot. But you can actually connect to all that is, which is anyone that's ever lived, and that kind of thing. And you can ask anything you want. And I haven't found anybody mean or rude or anything. They're all very happy to help you. And they especially like if you talk to family members that have passed away, they literally have a different perspective, because once they're dead, they realize that maybe the things they did wrong or what they missed out on. So they answer your questions with love and kindness. And it's not about blame. It's all about learning. And what did you learn from that? And well, I learned that didn't work. And I learned, I shouldn't have done it this way. But life is all about duality, which is actually one of the lessons in the new I Am document, because that's part of why we're here and how we learn. Because think of this, if you only had everything perfect in your life, let's say you grew up in a perfect household and your parents had lots of money and you got to go to the best of schools and have the best of cars and get the best of jobs. I mean, you wouldn't even appreciate it, because it would be like, it's just out of, like, that's my status quo. But if you grow up and you have to learn things like that, you do have to work hard for your grades, and maybe you have to work to go to school, or maybe you can't go to school and you have to do a labor type job until you can go to night school or something. And if marriage was always easy and everything was perfect, you wouldn't learn anything. You would just expect it. But if you have trouble communicating with your spouse, or you have trouble with your kids, you learn a lot. And so that's why God or our higher power gives us that, because without the duality of the have-not, you don't appreciate the have.
So how do you bridge the divide between one side and the other of duality?
Well, I think it's a matter of your attitude and changing your mindset. So you have to be open, first of all, and open to learning. So you recognize that this one set of circumstances, like maybe what's happening right at that moment, like it sucks and you don't like it, but you realize there is some good in that. There is some benefit in that, because by realizing what you don't like, then you realize what you do want. Like, let's say you're married and you're in an abusive relationship, and your husband's beating you up or yelling at you, or it's a verbal abuse, whatever. And if you sit back and reflect on it and you go, man, I hate this, like I don't like this, but this is all I've known, or this is how it was when I grew up, and that's how my grandma and granddad got along or didn't get along, and it's your status quo. But if you look at it and you go, I don't like this, I want it to be different, then you can start. You take that mindset and you figure out what you can do to change it. And you have to learn to look at really dire things for the good, and realize that is just the God or the universe teaching you a lesson. And if you don't pay attention, by golly, you're going to get it over and over again. So like you're better off to pay attention, ask your guides, and learn, and be on that fast track. Because you can make a lot of progress in a short amount of time if you are willing. And I think that is what happened to me. I was like in dire straits, and I was willing to do whatever it took. And so I was listening to my guides and doing what they said. I mean, I would spend hours talking to them in the morning, trying to figure out how to be in a better mood and how I could have a better life. And anybody can do it. And the thing is that I know what it was like to live in that life, that place of fear, and being so afraid, like that I wouldn't have enough money, and going to the grocery store and adding up the stuff in my basket, and making sure I had enough money in my checking account. And being worried about making enough money, and always being afraid to spend money, and just really worrying about work, and am I going to get it all done, and I have to get things done, and work. But now you learn to let go, you learn to trust, you learn to accept the negative things for the good that it teaches you.
And love them.
You learn how to be more positive. Is that what you were saying?
And are you able to love the things that you previously saw as negative?
Yes, exactly. And you appreciate it, and you love it, and you embrace it. Like,
what was that moment? What was that single moment where you flipped from fear to love? Like,
okay, well, this might be a little too much info, but what happened to me is I had a spiritual awakening. So I already had my wake-up call when I was getting a divorce. Like, my life sucks, I got to fix it. But then later on, when I got more into connecting with my guides and that sort of thing, I met someone, and I had a moment with him where it finally everything made sense. It was like all my fears and everything just floated away, like out of my body, and everything was peaceful and loving. And since then, it was like I was working towards it. It was like I was getting ready to turn that light switch on, but then it just flipped. And then after that, it was just more of the same. It's just a feeling of peace and joy and understanding that everything's for a reason. Like I kept thinking when my ex-husband left, I kept thinking, I'm made for better than this, better than cleaning toilets and cleaning up after somebody. It's like feeling like a unrespected maid. And I just kept thinking, I'm made for better than this. And I didn't know what it was. And I kept thinking, well, all this pain and angst and worry about getting a divorce and the finances, and can I keep my house, and how am I ever going to get out of debt, and those kind of things. It was, I just kept telling myself, there's a reason for this. I just don't know what it is. And that is what got me through. And that's something people should tell themselves all the time when they
sounds like you put yourself, sorry, it sounds like you put yourself in an abundance mindset by saying to yourself, there's more.
Right, right. And you tell yourself that often enough, you start believing it. And then eventually I worked out getting rid of the money worries and just let God. I mean, I finally just said, because I kept having conversations with my spirit guide saying, well, like, how am I going to pay for publishing these books? Like, because like it costs a lot of money, and and I'm worried about other things. And they just kept saying, we told you to trust. And don't you understand, you have money coming in from this space or that place. And I was like, oh yeah, so why am I worried? And I finally just said, if God wants me to do this mission, he can figure out the money. Like, I'm not going to worry about it. And I don't worry about it anymore. And everything so far is going good. So
why were you worried?
Pardon me?
Why were you worried?
Oh, I've always been worried about money. And I think it's from being a child and being told, we can't afford that. And we don't have money for that.
So it was basically a negative self-belief that was fundamentally not abundant. It was just like,
it was
you haven't got enough.
A lack mindset, a total mindset of lack. There's not enough. We don't have money for you to buy shoes. We don't have money for you to do this. And we can't do this because we don't have enough money. And I think that's what spurred me to work so hard in college, because I thought that's how I was going to save myself. Because obviously I couldn't count on anybody else.
So you were running. You were running away in terror from this imaginary disaster.
Right.
For years.
And I kept thinking, I can fix it. I just have to work harder and go to college and get a good job, and then I'll be safe. And then I didn't realize that isn't the answer. The answer is actually changing your mindset. Because I tried that, I was working 3 jobs and I was still in debt and I was still unhappy. Like, that didn't work. So that's why I was like at the end going, well, I got to do something different, because this sure as hell isn't working.
So what do you say spiritual awakening kind of happens where your strategies that one uses, just, you realize that it's just not working. and you've got to try something else because you use everything up and you're just like, what now?
Right, right. And I think what happened is I met the right person, that I finally met someone that loved me for me. They didn't love me because I was gonna be a good cook or a good housekeeper or any of the things that my 2 previous husbands liked about me. You know, this person just loved me for me. I mean, I was overweight, I was overwhelmed, I was working and still trying to figure out a lot of my life, but he loved me, and he loved me just how I was, and he didn't care about any of that. And it just felt right. And so it was to be face to face with someone who loves you like that, and they love you so much they don't even have to tell you. That was what was uncanny for me, is because he didn't have to say he loved me. I could tell the way he treated me and the way he looked at me. And when you see that in someone else's eyes, and then you think, well, I guess I am worthy. I guess I am good enough. If that person that I think highly of thinks I'm okay, then I guess I am. So I think it gave me that extra boost to know, hey, you are made for greatness. You can really do whatever you want, and don't be afraid. But
when it comes to your relationship with yourself, what would you advise?
Could you repeat that?
When it comes down to our relationship with ourselves, what would you advise?
I think that we need to all recognize that we are worthy. We're all made for greatness, that God or whoever our higher power is does not make mistakes, and that we are all on a journey. So if we might feel like we're less than perfect, we're perfect just as we are. But yes, if we want to improve, which we should be trying to always do our best, you know, there are ways and we can improve. But don't beat yourself up because you're not perfect now. Like,
what is greatness? So pardon me, it's just that a lot of people, they think about greatness and they compare themselves to the greats of history, and often it's thought of in a relative way. But is greatness relative or is it absolute?
I think it's relative. You know, we're not to be judged against each other. We're all on our own journey. In fact, one of the things in the I Am document is that judging is reserved for God. So it's not up to us to judge other people and how their path is, whether it's hard or easy, because everybody's on their own path. But so greatness is, I think, defined by our greatness is being the best version of ourselves that we can be.
And greatness is divine, right? So it's like, and we're divine, right? So we've got all this potential. So
it's living up to our potential. Greatness is living up to our potential, living up to our God-given or divine-given potential.
As opposed to lack, yeah.
And people think they can't do it, but it's like, once you tell yourself that enough, you'll start believing it, and you'll start feeling like, I can go do whatever I want, you know? The way I learned it, I belong to Mind Valley, and one of the founders is Vishen Lakhiani, and he teaches us to learn to be unfuckwithable. And I can't believe I said that, but I did. I have to practice it. And it means that you can just do anything and you don't worry about what other people think. And that doesn't mean that you're mean or rude to them. It means that you don't change your life to accommodate their wishes. It means if you want to go do something, you figure out a way and you go do it. And you don't worry about all the naysayers saying you can't do that or who do you think you are. And you start thinking better of yourself, that you are capable. And once you step into that and you step into your greatness, then you're not so afraid. Like you can envision yourself giving a speech to 1,000 people, or you can envision yourself being an author and making #1 on international or something like that. You can start envisioning it, and you're not afraid. So and it all starts in your own mindset and realizing that we are all made for greatness and we can do it, but it's up to us to do the work and change the mindset so we can go forward. I mean, growing up as a woman in the 50s in the United States, I mean, we were taught that you do everything for your family and there's no time, you know, you don't get to do what you want. So for someone like me just to step out and say, I'm going to go on a vacation and I'm going to go to Europe by myself, or I'm going to go figure out how to buy a new car or something. And people are like, well, you can't do that. Who do you think you are? but it's like you have to finally give yourself permission to do it. And then you can kind of grow into being that braver version of yourself and not be afraid. Well, gosh, writing a book, that's a lot of work. And not being afraid, not being overwhelmed, just, well, whatever it takes, I'll figure it out. Like, I'm smart enough. And then, whatever the next step is, you just keep pushing yourself. And after a while, you just feel like you're unstoppable. I mean, can you imagine what the world would be like if everybody adopted that mindset? Like, where we would be? Like, and I'm not saying to advance and be mean to other people. I'm saying advance and grow and teach other people what you've learned and move everybody up.
Yeah.
So and I think it's really interesting, the name of your podcast, get it right, Ideology to Unity.
From ideology to unity, yeah.
From ideology to unity. So the thing is that in the I Am document, the underlying thing of all of it is that we are all connected. And we are all actually one great consciousness. And so everything that you do and everything that I do affects other beings, and not just people, but the environment and that kind of thing, and animals. And so we need to learn that, because as we advance as a species, we need to bring everybody with us.
Janie.
So it's we all need to be united. We're all one.
Yeah, but Janie, I just, as you were saying that, like, I just realized that the name of my podcast was deeper than I realized at the time.
Oh, it is.
Like, I had reasoning at the time, like, I was moving away from helping other people move away from being in a large ideological dogma to coming together and unifying, right? But even for me, like, it was like, it's also about what is ideology? It's beliefs. And what are beliefs? Like, they're based on limitation.
Exactly.
Right? Whereas unity is a more unified, it integrates different perspectives together. Because you get negative self-beliefs, like, for example, don't you? Yeah. So from ideology, it's just simply a belief about yourself and how you need to live that holds you back, limits you, and puts you in fear. And different beliefs aren't compatible with each other. That's duality, and they're all at odds with each other. Whereas unity is simply, it's the abundance of, we don't need to pick one or the other. Like, we can have it all, I suppose.
Right. We can. And that's a big deal. People have limiting beliefs, and they don't realize that they're limiting beliefs. And you have to step back and dissect it and go, well, why do I think that? Oh, well, why do I think this? Oh, and then you realize I heard an interesting story, and that'll give you an idea about limiting beliefs. So this woman is making a ham dinner, and she cuts off the ends and she bakes it. And the husband says, why are you always cutting off the ends of the ham when you bake it? She said, well, that's how my mother always did it. Okay, she didn't really know why. It was just a limiting belief. That's the way it always been done. Like, she never questioned it. So they went and asked the mother and said, okay, so why do you do this? And she said, oh, I do it because grandma always did it that way. And they were like, well, you mean that's it? Yeah, that's what I learned. So that's what I did. So she finally went to the grandma and said, why are you cutting off the ends of the ham before you bake it? And she said, it wouldn't fit in my pan. So that whole thing, all through this history, it's all because grandma had a pan that was too small for the ham.
A limitation.
Yes, and people are going, well, that's what I learned, so that's what I did.
Ancestral. And you mentioned earlier that we get these negative energies or whatever from our ancestors that we need to heal or whatever, and they pass it down, and then, like, there we go. I was just thinking earlier about, for example, how siblings can have, like, it's almost like they can adopt the energies of different family members previously. Yeah, it's really interesting. Is there anything?
Probably a lot of it's unconscious.
So what about when it comes to ancestral energies? Could you elaborate about that?
Well, I found it very helpful to connect with people in my family that have passed away to find out why things were certain ways. And that's, you know, because some people died, you know, I never knew them, so I didn't really understand. But I've been able to uncover the dynamics of my grandparents' life and how that affected my father and mother's relationship, and that they divorced. I mean, so did my grandparents. But it gives you an understanding, and it has to do with domestic violence. I guess that's the right term. And so if that's what you know when you grow up, you accept it. And so I realized that I was, even in my marriage, I was putting up with mean comments and that kind of thing. And it was like, oh, well, it's just part of being married. You just got to put up with this shit. And you start realizing, no, you don't have to. Just because it's been like that in your family, you don't have to. Like, let's say somebody that grows up where in a family where they live in the projects and their father's not part of the family, and then all there's gang members and people have drugs and stuff. So they grow up thinking that's their family, to be in these gangs and stuff. And people that don't live there think, well, that's weird. But for them, that's their reality. That's their the way they grew up. They don't know anything different. So we all have those, the way we came in or the way we were brought up, where we have to understand that that's limiting us, and we could really have a different kind of life. But we have to examine it and decide that we're not going to choose it. I mean, a lot of people don't want to go there, and they just go, oh, well, they want to live in the poor me. And if you want to change your life, you can't live in the poor me. You have to go, I don't like this, and how am I going to fix it? And even if it's been going on for years, I'm just not going to do it. Because some of those family dynamics, like abuse or drugs or alcoholism, that's a really big one. It's people don't understand that if that's how you grow up, you don't know anything different. It's just like the people who's, you know, everybody in their family became a doctor, or everybody in their family became a lawyer. It's the same thing. It's just a different thing was carried down, different expectation.
Right. And whatever the pattern is, it doesn't have to be that way. And we need to, once we realize that there's an abundance of possibilities.
Right. We don't have to choose that. I mean, if you want to, go ahead, but you know, I don't want to be an alcoholic, so I'm going to choose something else. And then you think about it in terms of how that's going to help the generations after you. Because if you improve your life, you set a good example for your children and your grandchildren, and even anybody else you come in contact with, because they start seeing, oh, I can really do or have whatever I want because so-and-so did it. So it is possible. I don't have to live with this limiting belief. But the first thing is you have to realize it. You know, you have to be aware enough and be willing to change and be open to it. And then you can start figuring out how to do it. And asking your spirit guides is a great way, an easy way. And if people don't believe it, I would say learn to sit quietly and then start asking and see what you get. I mean, what have you got to lose? If you don't really believe it, just try it, and maybe eventually you would be open enough to listening. It's because it's totally amazing to think that we have that capability, that we had that all along, and all we had to do was tap into it. Like life is so much easier, there's so much more flow and happiness and grace and all that. And then when something negative happens, you learn new ways to deal with it. Like one of the things I learned, like say something happens that I don't like, the duality, you know, the crappy thing I don't want, and that happens. I've learned how to do this, and it took practice to acknowledge the feeling and go, okay, I'm feeling this way. I'm feeling sad. I'm unhappy. I want to cry or whatever. And then you accept it, and that you just let it, I call it, let it flow through you. So you go, okay, I see you, I see the hurt and everything, and I feel it. And then you feel it for a few seconds, maybe longer if you need to, and then just let it flow through you. And then you kind of bounce back to your happy self because you've acknowledged it. So many times when people take that hurt thing and they try to stuff it and not acknowledge it, then I think they get sick and have other kinds of problems because your body knows what's going on with your feelings, and I believe it manifests in some sort of way. So learning how to deal with your feelings, I think, is a way to help you stay healthy. Like you accept them, you let them flow through, and then you figure out how you're going to keep your positive mindset, and then those things don't bother you. And if you're around people that are negative and are always saying that negative things, trying to make you feel bad, you have to learn to protect yourself, which it was a big lesson for me. You have to learn how to, I call it, put Teflon up around you, so that when they say those things, that you don't absorb it. And if you do absorb it, then let it just flow through you. Don't take
question. If you're used to repressing or trying to change your emotions, how do you know how to let it flow?
I think it takes practice, and I think you probably need to start a practice where you communicate with your spirit guides daily so that they can guide you. Because you could ask them specifically, well, how do I make this pain go away? What do I need to do? And they will give you ideas. Like for me, when I get really upset or tight or anxious, and it might not even be able to really tell what it is, my guides will remind me, you need to go outside. You need to go for a walk in nature, because that does it for me. So I'll just go out and walk, and maybe listen to soothing music, or maybe not have any music. Just look at the birds and the trees and the sky and stuff, and it calms me down, and then I don't have that angst anymore. But you have to pay attention to your guidance system, which is your feelings. And when you feel out of whack, you need to get back in there and do something about it. You have to be proactive instead of waiting till you get, we're like, oh, I need to OD because I can't handle it. Life's too bad. When you start feeling a little bit off, you need to work on it so you can keep your vibrations up, so you can keep yourself happy. But learning to be quiet and ask your spirit guides, that's a really big help. Then you'll figure out techniques that work for you. Totally doable. Because I mean, if I can do it, anybody can do it. It's not like
you used to have a lot of mental chatter, right? And that, yes. Obviously you don't now. That's what Eckhart Tolle calls presence.
Well, I do have mental chatter, but it's a lot better. It's happier and more positive.
Right.
Like so, something seems like it's be overwhelming, then I go, no, you can do it. So that's better than saying, no, who do you think you are? You can't do that big thing. So you still have the chatter, but it's just not negative. It's kind of like having your own pep talk. But after a while, I mean, I would say the chatter is much less because I don't really need it anymore. I feel more invincible. Like I can go do whatever I want. It's just a matter of figuring out what you really want. Because if you focus on something you don't want, you'll get that too. So better to focus on what you do want.
Yeah. Would you say it helps to view what you want as already focus on the end result, that as if you've already got it?
Right. To change your mindset that either you've already got it or it's coming to me and I'm not going to be stressed. I'm just trusting. I'm trusting God. I'm trusting the universe that they're going to bring it to me, and it's going to be at the right timing. Because the humans want everything right now. Okay, I want $1 million. Okay, I want it right now. Well, maybe that's not the best thing, because maybe right now you're not ready to handle $1 million. And if you got it, you'd lose it all. So maybe you need to learn and grow and learn about investing or creating more wealth or leveraging wealth before you come into your millions. So another thing would be like wanting a certain person for a partner. And you think, oh, they're perfect. I want them now. But maybe the person hasn't grown enough, and maybe you haven't grown enough. So you need to keep that in mind.
Yeah.
Knowing that you can trust a higher power to do everything in the right timing, it's so freeing, because then what is there to worry about? And that's part of what's in the new I Am document, is learning about how to trust God or your higher power, and that that things will be set out for your best good. It just might not be in our time frame. It might be a slower one, take longer to get there. But we also need to learn to do our best and let go of the outcome. Like if you do your best on something, but you come in second or last or whatever, then you just don't worry about it. Don't beat yourself up. Don't tell yourself you're a failure. You did your best, be proud of yourself. Now, if you didn't really do your best, maybe you need to give yourself a little push, like work a little harder. But as long as we do our best, we shouldn't be attached to the outcome. Like for example, when I'm doing my books, so far I have not made a lot of money. Like I haven't even made enough money to cover my expenses. And I've been doing it, this is the 4th year. But I'm not worried about that because I'm doing what God wants me to do. And I'm letting go of the outcome. If I was worried about the outcome, I might say different things. I might not own my truth. I might have some kind of tricky way to sell stuff or, but I don't want to do that. I'm just being upfront, honest. I'm doing the best I can. I'm learning as I go, and I'm letting go of the outcome. And I'm sure that my books will reach the people they're supposed to reach. And I'm not in it to make money. I'm in it to help people and help humanity get to another level of consciousness. And I'm confident that when the time's right, the new I Am movement I'll figure out ways to have it create money so that I can build that and make it a bigger thing. Because to do a movement, you're going to need a lot of money because it's
maybe how to make money from it will be a download you receive.
Oh, probably.
Yeah.
I'll learn different ways to do it, or the word will get. I kind of hope it's something like a grassroots movement where people learn and they tell their friends and then they tell their friends and then it grows that way, because I think I could reach more people that way rather than having a big, huge media blitz. Although not to discount that, I have recorded an episode for Amazon Prime, and I don't know when it's going to come out. I recorded it last fall, and it's about the I Am document and downloading it and my life's mission. And that's one thing, if people will go to the website, the new IamMovement.com, then they'll know when that comes out. We'll send an email out to people to tell them when to tune in. But I'm just trying to learn and do the things that feel right to spread the word, and trying to get better at each thing, and I let go of it because God wants this to happen. He thinks it's important, or she thinks it's important. Then it's just my job to do the work. Let go of the outcome.
Yeah. Would you say one of the most important things is just being authentic?
Yes. And I think we all need to learn to own our authenticness. Like when I first figured out that I was a medium, I didn't tell anybody, and I tried to, and then I try to tell a few people, or I try to hint at it. And then finally I just said, I got to come out of the closet, so to speak, and just own it. And if people think I'm crazy, then okay, then think I'm crazy. Like I'm not going to worry about it. And that's part of being that unwithable. So you just have to go, I'm not going to worry about what other people think. I'm going to be authentic. This is me. This is it. And if I accept me, who are you to say that I'm not good enough? Like, I'm not worried about what you think. And it's really, now in spiritual circles, being able to connect and talk to people that have passed away, or to talk to animals. And I guess there's some people that can talk to trees and stuff like that. That might not seem strange, but in mainstream, the people I'm use day-to-day life with and my family, that's really far out there. So it takes a lot of nerve to be able to be authentic.
It does. People are so afraid, and
yes,
but those who are authentic are fortunate to be able to be willing to be authentic, because really those who aren't are the ones having a hard time, right?
Right. Once you own your authenticness, life is a lot easier. It's like you don't have to pretend anymore. So you can just go, well, this is me. this is just the way I am. I'm going to go with it. It's so freeing. It's been a great journey. I'm really excited for the next part. So,
was fear of death something you had to deal with?
No, I think I had. I haven't been afraid of deaths. I'd say my father died in 2003, and I would think since then I haven't been afraid of death, because and I don't know where this came from, but I just kind of thought, well, when I die, my dad will be there and I'll be safe. So I didn't worry about it. So I'm not really afraid of death. Since then, I found out that when you die, you really just go to another dimension. And, so it actually sounds kind of exciting to me. I was told that how long I'm going to live, and that I'm going to get 3 of these volumes, these discourses, to get the word out. And that when I leave, I will be an ascended master, helping people that are still on their earthly journey. And I thought, well, that's not bad. So like, I can do that. Kind of like my guides are helping me, and kind of like the ascended masters that dictated the book to me. They're people of higher levels of understanding, and they kind of see the big picture and can understand things.
Who, I mean, who is kind of a meaningless question, I guess, in the spirit plot, but like, who were the descended masters?
Well, it's my understanding that there are people in a different dimension, or not people, spirits in a different dimension, who are aiding with elevating the consciousness of those of us that are still on Earth. So they're like teachers, and they're like guides, but they have a higher level of understanding. Because I've had times where I talk to my spirit guides, and they would I could get a sense. The sense sounds kind of silly. Like, I would ask a question, and I would get a sense of them like standing around trying to explain it. And there would be like this little one in the front, and he would step forward and he would try to explain it. But you could tell he was a newbie, and he would say something or other, and then it would be like, oh, that was really good. That was insightful. And then he would step back with the rest of them, and they would be like patting him on the
that's kind of cute.
Yeah, and I mean, what they look, I don't usually see them, but at that time I could see them, and the closest thing I could describe is like a ghost, like with sheet over them. And I don't know if they just presented themselves like that, so I would know they were there and what they look like. But that's what it certainly felt like, and that's what it seemed like. So they were like congratulating him for doing a good job, because he was just learning to be a spirit guide. It was kind of cute. And I've had conversations with them before. One time I remember they said something mean to me, and I called them on it. I said, that's not a very nice way to act to me. I'm doing the best I can, and you shouldn't be making fun of me. And they were like, oh, okay. So that only happened like once, but it does help you grow, because you're having a conversation and you're learning. And when you learn that you should be nice to people and kind and not be saying negative things, then it's a different way to operate. Like one of the chapters, or one of the lessons in the new I Am document, is about truth and telling people the truth. And so it's a pretty long discourse about, well, when do you tell the truth and when do you not tell the truth? Well, you always want to tell the truth, but it's all in a matter of the manner that you tell it. Like, if you're a parent and your child does something wrong, then you don't have to say it in a mean way. You can say, whatever it was you did, that's not really the best thing. Maybe you could do this other thing instead, or you could handle it this way. But you don't tell them, oh, you're stupid and you made a big mistake and you're going to amount to anything. So it's all about the delivery. It's not about, you can still tell the truth, but be kind about it. And if you think about times when you've done that to other people, or people have done it to you, you can relate to, like, that didn't feel good. So that's a way that we learn. So we all have to learn to be truthful, but be kind when we're telling the truth, and try to say it in a nice way.
Have you connected with extraterrestrials at all?
Nobody's asked me that, but yes, I have. Yes, they wanted me to write another book, and I wrote like 3 chapters. And I was kind of like, well, do I have to do this? Because I got plenty of other things to do. And so they quit bothering me. They quit waking me up. But it's actually pretty interesting.
You can talk about it. Well, I'm curious.
Well, apparently there's a place called, people called Pleiadians, and another planet called Lyra or Lion or something like that. And
Lyra?
That's it. And they told me that my ancestors were from those two places. And they told me about the Lyra, how it was destroyed, and some of the people left there, or the beings left there, and they went to the Pleiadian, and they, you know, had children together and stuff, and that's what I'm a product of. And that then the Pleiades their planet was had a lot of problems and, you know, destruction and all that. And so they decided to flee, and they came to other planets, and Earth is one of the places they came, and that there are lots of us, and it's our job to raise the consciousness of the Earth. I know it sounds weird because I'm not in sci-fi.
But I've talked about extraterrestrials in previous episodes, so like you don't need to be self-conscious about it in this podcast.
Well, so I went and looked at, I did have one person before they communicated with me. I did meet somebody who told me this. So at least I'd heard of it, but they told me a lot of details about like how they infiltrate the humans and have the babies, and that they're from there. And
do you mean the good ones, so to speak?
Well, how the Pleiadians came, and how they like they're out there. This is the way I understand it. They're out, like they are observing us. We just can't see them because we're in a different dimension and different density. But they're watching us, and then when they want one of their beings to be born, they go into the human, you know, when the mother's pregnant, and they like change places with the spirit that's in there. And that's how they get born and come to Earth and have an earthly life.
Is it a contractual thing on a spirit level?
It must be, because they come here with a purpose, and you know, it's a big thing. And there's, I mean, I've met lots of people that tell me that they know they're here to do a purpose. So, I mean, before I was told, I hadn't heard of that. I thought that was, you know, strange. But
Janie, are you afraid of what people think of you?
Not anymore, but I definitely used to be.
You did come off a little bit sheepish when I asked you about
about the extraterrestrials. Yeah, I think I probably still got to get over that fear, because that's pretty strange. I mean, I haven't totally embraced that. I'm still trying to figure out, you know, how am I going to tell people these 100 lessons so that they can be better beings and learn and grow. But there are many things that, I mean, there's many people living on the Earth that know about the beings from other planets. And one example they gave me is, they said the movie Avatar, where the beings are purple, that James Cameron, that those people are from another planet. I don't know if it's Pleiades or not. I don't remember what they said, but they said James Cameron made that movie so people would start seeing and understanding that. And so I had never watched the movie, so I watched it, and it's about these blue people, and they're kind and loving, and they have a whole different way of life. And so I wouldn't be surprised if they really did, if there really are beings like that and they come from some other place. I mean, we need to open up our minds to the possibility of this, that there's way more to life than what we think or believe. It doesn't mean we have to believe it all, but just be open to it.
It's like what we talked about with the infinity of possibilities, right? And not having a limited mindset, because we're being open to previously unconsidered, I suppose, because that is an abundance mindset. It's not just that you can, it's not just that you've got everything that you need, but in how you think, I suppose.
Yeah, there's way more to it. And, you know, I think people learn in increments. So like for me for me, it's, I mean, I used to be an atheist, not an agnostic. I used to be an atheist.
Same.
So for me to even like go to church at all later in my life or be open to any of this is like huge. I didn't grow up going to church every Sunday. I mean, I've been, but not like on a regular basis. So for me to get to where I am, to believe that there's a God or a universe and that we are all one and that we have lessons to learn and that we come here and we live multiple lives. I mean, all that, like my mind is just about like exploding. So if to lay on the next layer to me about extraterrestrials, like, okay, all right, I'm trying to be open, but like, I can't learn any more about that right now because it like my mind's gonna pop. But people have to learn little bits at a time, like maybe learn about that there's a God. And then they have to learn, you know, that they're worthy and that, you know, just steps and steps and
Yeah.
brushing away those limiting beliefs as you go.
Maybe they recognized, was it the Palladians or the Lyrans, that they recognized that the pace you're going at and that you needed time.
That's probably good, especially when I told them, you know, I've got plenty
I
of
had a similar sort of experience with the Arcturians. Yeah. I was in a negative place, and if you're going to connect to other beings, and you're in a place of fear, it's not going to go well.
right. Well, that's interesting to hear. Thank you for sharing that. I think there's a lot more of it going on than people let others know, because it's not mainstream, and then it's, you know, people don't want to be ostracized. But I thank you for asking. You're pushing me outside my comfort zone, so that's good. That's another way to learn and grow. Just keep pushing.
Yeah, as long as it's not too pushy. So you've got quite an interesting painting in the background there.
Oh, this one? This
Yeah.
one here? Okay, that's the name of my published company is Golden Spiral, which has meanings of the golden spiral of life. And so when I saw that painting, I really wanted it. But of course, when I first saw it, I was too cheap to buy it. And so I told my marketing person, and she said, Janie, if it's representative of your publishing company, you need to go buy it. And so I went back and bought it. So that gives you kind of an idea about what a limiting mindset I had about money. But yes, there's a whole, when I was trying to decide on a publishing company name, you know, I did a lot of research. So the golden spiral has a lot of meanings, and the spiral is duplicated all over life. So it's kind of like a meaning, to me, it symbolizes the journey of life and the spiraling and how we keep changing and growing. But if you see, it's like in seashells. Oh, I can't even remember.
The phi is the number, right? The irrational number phi.
Yes. There's some other numeric thing to do with it too. Because when I was looking up the name, I kept getting other websites that were similar. So that's why I had to call it Golden Spiral Press. And I had to be self-published because, you know, it was too hard to find someone to publish my first books. And then I finally just said, well, like, I want to get the books out, so I'll just do it myself. So instead of saying no, I couldn't, I said, no, I'll just find a different way. And that was the way.
You know, it's funny. Now, I was never really a fan of Obama, but the "yes, we can" phrase is actually pretty powerful, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's something we need to tell ourselves those kinds of things regularly. I mean, sometimes people make fun of affirmations and note cards, but that's what I use to help change my mindset. I put them all over, you know, or I'd read some little quote that made me feel good or made me feel empowered or like that I could do something. And then I would put that in my bathroom so I could read it or do Post-it notes and stuff and repeat it. But and what I found out later is that scientifically they've proven that your brain doesn't know the difference if it's true or not. So just feed it the good stuff and you'll start believing it. And that's basically what I was doing intuitively without.
What are your favorite affirmations?
Oh, I don't even know. I don't even think I can think of one. It's probably something along I can have, be, or do anything I want.
So I guess whatever it is, it comes to you and you're like, okay, this is the affirmation. And do you need to say it out loud, or can you just do it in your head?
Well, you can do it in your head, but I think saying it aloud, and I think saying it in the mirror, I think that helps more. I've also read articles about affirmations and why people say they don't work. Well, to me, what I get out of that is that it doesn't work on the people that think it's not going to work. So if you think it's not going to work, it's not going to work, right? If you think
you're just going through the motions to get the outcome.
Right.
If you're trying to get an outcome of like, I guess the better way to do it might just be spontaneous.
I think you have to have a belief that it's true, and if you can't believe it's true when you first start saying it, like let's say you want to be a public
Is it belief or knowing?
I think you need to let that belief grow, and it'll grow into knowing. But if you can't believe it in the beginning, then you at least need to be open. Like
you lay the seeds and let it flower.
Yes, and let it percolate, and then keep telling yourself, and then eventually you'll just believe it. Because it's not that hard. I mean, I grew up with like no encouragement. Nobody's saying, oh, you can do stuff. And I've self-taught myself to do that. So, I mean, people think I'm pretty bold when I say I quit my job in real estate to publish books and I'm not really making money, but I'm going to do it anyway. And they kind of go, well, how can you do that? And it's like, I don't know, I'll figure it out. And then they're like, you're not taking the safe route. It's like, no, been taking that safe route. That didn't really work. So
do you ever find that you look back in your life and that you'd got all these hints that you didn't realize?
Exactly. That's why it's so important for people to pay attention. Because if you don't pay attention, you just keep doing it over and over.
So that's awareness.
Yeah, self-awareness is like a big deal. So, if they're teaching young children now to be mindful, basically to meditate, be quiet, acknowledge their emotions and that kind of stuff, it'll help with bullying and picking on other kids. It'll help with how they act and treat other kids. But if you start teaching people when they're young, when they're children, to be more aware and pay attention to their feelings, can you imagine how much progress mankind would make, or humankind would make, in just 1 or 2 generations? Instead of having, yes.
We are there. It might not seem it, but I'm pretty confident. Well, I basically know really that we're at the turning point. It just doesn't immediately happen, and it's a messy process. Right.
But if people are aware of what we need, and the younger you start others and help them on the right path, it just helps. It helps all humanity, because eventually there'll be more people that are operating from a place of love and kindness and peace and unity and oneness, that there'll be fewer and fewer of the people that are trying to make the world all just divisive and keep things separate and keep abusing the environment and hurting animals and stuff. Do
you ever feel how you were, like a divisive, sort of angry mindset, like even though you've moved beyond it? Does it ever pop
yes, up? I do have times where I guess you would call it fall off the wagon and get really angry about something. A recent thing is trying to work on a real estate deal, and we have multiple partners, and one of the people is just not very, he's just different. So he doesn't get along, and he causes a lot of dissension and that kind of thing. And, it used to really make me mad, because like I'm trying to work on getting something done, and he's always complaining and saying negative things. And then I finally stepped back. So I had a lot of anger about that. So I finally stepped back and I thought, he's doing the best he can. He's coming from a place of fear. And so all these mean things that he says and does, and what I consider inappropriate and hateful and spiteful, I just think he's coming from a place of fear, and he doesn't know any better, and he can't help it. So all I can do is try to set an example and say, try to put his fears at ease. No, that's not what's happening. And you don't need to worry about this. It's, of course, we're not doing anything that you wouldn't like, and then try to be more inclusive and keep keep him informed of everything that's happening, and look at it more like a good thing, that he's keeping the rest of us on track. His method is kind of abrupt, but it is hard. Another example that I had in the last couple of years is I got a notice that I was getting audited by the IRS, the federal government, for taxes. And so at first I was incensed, like, how can they do this? And then I realized, well, you know, maybe somebody's just doing their job, and maybe there was something that looked funny and they're going to check, and, you know, my CPA can help figure it out. And if there's something wrong, we'll fix it. Because it's like, I wasn't doing anything to hide anything. I was paying plenty of taxes. So it wasn't like I was not paying taxes. And, but in the past, I mean, that would have thrown me for like if that was 10 years ago, that would have thrown me into like a really serious depression and fear mode and all that. And it ended up that I did have to, my CPA made errors, several errors, and I had to pay more tax. But it wasn't as dire as I thought at the time. But the way I handled it, I was really proud of myself. Like, I didn't call up my CPA and yell at him and cuss him out or anything. I was really calm and say, well, how did that happen? And what were you thinking? And trying to figure stuff out. So it's a process, but you have to learn how to handle your emotions. And a lot of people are so out of touch with their emotions, and they get angry, and they don't even getting angry at the right people. Like, not that they shouldn't be getting angry at anybody. They should be learning how to deal with the situation. So anyway, I've learned that a lot, but it's a process. And sometimes you'll kind of go off and something will set you off, and then you have to figure out how to get back on track. But realizing that everybody else looks at stuff from a different perspective, and try to be more understanding and have some compassion for them, even though you might be kind of mad at them and not want to give them any compassion, that will help. You'll learn and grow as a person, and then you won't be, you know, because we're not supposed to be judging these people anyway. They're doing the best they can. Like, that's a big thing in marriage. Like, you get a divorce, or your spouse does stuff you don't like, you have to learn to realize they're in a different place, and maybe they're doing the best they can, and it's your job to teach them certain things or show them how their actions affect you. But it's not our job to judge them or to you know, berate them or anything, you know, to explain it. And then, you know, at some time you might not be able to stay married to them, but you don't have to be mean about it. Yeah,
that's true. So if you were to sum up what you're all about and what you're doing, how do you put it?
I would say that if I can learn to change my life and go from being spiritually starved and being a workaholic, and I can learn how to calm down, live my best life, connect to all that is, and learn how to live a peaceful, loving, joyful life, then anybody can do it. Because I'm not a rocket scientist. I am not that smart. The only thing I would say that I have, probably that a lot of people don't, is that I have a lot more persistence. So if someone really wants to live a life of peace and joy and happiness and contentment and feeling really good and not living in fear and all that, you know, there is a way, but you have to be committed to taking the steps to get there. And it's not difficult. It just might take some time, but if you're going to be here anyway, you might as well put it to good use. So I think anybody can do it. And I would hope that others would strive to live a life like that. And
that is actually, sorry, that was really encouraging, because, well, yeah, everyone can. And it's just about awareness. And yeah, so, you know, some people get pessimistic about this awakening or what have you, but will people realize, you know, with everything going on in the world, but, you know, once it picks up its pace, it will happen surprisingly quickly, I'm sure. And it's already begun, so.
Right, and it'll never end. It's just a continuing thing.
Yeah.
But people shouldn't be afraid. It's just different. People get stuck in the mindset of they're afraid of anything new. That's why people stay stuck in bad relationships or bad situations, because at least they know what it is. But it's just because we're creatures of habit and we like to do what's familiar. But once we learn to not be afraid, then we can, you know, reach out and try new, better ways. But I would really encourage people to go to the new IamMovement.com and start following that and find out, you know, what's going on and get little bits of encouragement. And then when the books come out, they can start learning the lessons and starting on the path, because it's not that overwhelming. In fact, there are videos there's videos now on the first 50 lessons that if people wanted to start, they could start learning that.
Yeah, that sounds pretty good. And I've really enjoyed talking to you. Thank
you very much. I really appreciate it.
All right. Well, thank you, listener or viewer. Depends what medium you're listening to this on. But I hope you enjoyed it.